morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you guys are at. I hope you're having a fantastic day. It's SoulSaint here, and we have the Fusion event calendar for Vault Keeper WIXWELL. I'm taking a look at. I took a little bit look at it just before we got started into this video, and I'll be honest with you, the cascading effect that the little stairs that is this Fusion is going to be kind of interesting. I will say, overall, just right off the rip, there's a lot of really good overlap in terms of events and tournaments that are going to make doing this Fusion very, very easily. So one of the things you try to accomplish when it comes to being frugal with your resources is try to make sure that you have, you do everything you can. Like within one, if you could do one dungeon but do other things at the same time, like for example, we're going to talk about it today, hit multiple events at the same time so that you can complete all of them in one go instead of having to do a little bit here and then do something entirely separate right there, which costs, double the amount of resources, right? So let's break it down. So today, Thursday, which is the time of this recording, we are in the middle of Dungeon Divers Event 1 and Tournament for Dragon. So this Dragon event is actually going to be kind of spicy because it is a 2x speed as well, so that's kind of a little interesting nod. But the overlap for Dungeon Divers 1 and Dragon are very, very good. I mean, they're perfect. I mean, they're starting at the exact same time, so not a bad thing. You can kind of get started on that. You can maybe even take your time a little bit. And the reason why is that on Friday, we're going to have the Champion Chase Tournament along with the Champion Training event. So I believe this is going to be a 2x Ancient event where you're going to be able to summon and get increased chances at not only Epics, but Legendaries as well. And the Champ Training itself, too, as well. So, like, you could technically do 4 for 1 or 3 for 1, basically, in a summary words, where you could ease your way into Dragon Tournament for today, and then tomorrow you really amp it up and you take some food along the way. There's a lot of champions that are used in the game that allow you to be able to farm not only food but champions at the same time while accomplishing Dragon. So think about your Theodores, your solo build champions like Nishak, or maybe a duo team comp. That could be a great way for you to be able to jump back into getting all of them done at the same time. So I would say if you're one of those people who are capable of doing it, definitely try to see if you can ease your way into this event. Maybe do a little bit of tournaments in between, like your farming your dailies or whatever the case may be. And then on Friday, you really amp it up and try to get as much as you can done for DD1 and Dragon Tournament, while also pulling your shards or your champions. This is Champion Chase, so it's what you get, not what you use. So you can technically pull from fragments. You can pull from fusible champions, like if you're sitting on a Mikage that you're ready to pull, or if you have some built-up champions ready for Broadmaw, you can probably feed a couple of those in there to get yourself along the way with points. With that being said, though, Dragon and Champ Training can kind of be done together if you have the resources and the means to do so. However, we are hit with our first ever resource tax here, which is Artifact Enhancement number 1. I normally go by a rule of at least 15 mil per Artifact Enhancement event, and it looks like we're going to get 3, so 15, 30, 45. You want to be north of 45 if possible, maybe even a little bit more just to be a bit precautious, because we don't know if these points go up in terms of the demand or if they got a little bit easier. We assume the worst, right? That's the best way to prepare yourself. We have an isolated classic arena takedown also occurring on Saturday, so pretty much as long as you stay on top of your dailies for the next 2 to 3 days in that event, or if you decide to use a couple extra refills, that should get you over the finish line. Classic arena events are pretty easy overall to accomplish in Fusion, so one of the easier ones. And there's a reason why I'm saying it's easier to keep in mind, okay? Now, here's something that's interesting about our Fusion event calendar and how I said the overlap is not too bad. If you pay attention here, Ice Golem overlaps just a little bit, so you might get like maybe a couple hours, maybe even a little bit of a portion of the day where Ice Golem overlaps with Dungeon Divers number 1. So if you're already done with Dragon Tournament and you're just doing Champ Training on the side in like Campaign, for example, while you're grinding out, the other tournaments or events, and Ice Golem opens up, but you may not be fully done with Dungeon Divers, this could be a great opportunity for you to do some overlap that way. Do a little bit of Ice Golem while accomplishing Dungeon Divers, and then you ease up until you get into Dungeon Divers number 2. So it is a little offset. However, there is a bit of an intersect between Ice Golem and DD 1 and 2. That pretty much is going to do it for Monday through Tuesday through Wednesday even, where we start grabbing our next event, which is the next big tax for silver. It's going to be Artifact Enhancement number 2, which is going to be where you're going to use another little bit of resources, maybe enchant some of the pieces you got from that Dragon Tournament, maybe if you're doing Ice Golem. I also do want to know, Ice Golem is going to be doing a 2x, I believe, curse set. Drop Fever, so if you're looking for curse gear, that'd be another great opportunity to sit in there. I'm probably going to sit in both, believe it or not. But yeah, artifact enhancement, this is going to be where you can clean up some of your gear and whatnot. This is a good time to do it if you have all the other objectives done. Now, overlap number 2, where you can get a little bit extra value. Fire Knight actually does intercept or overlap with Dungeon Divers number 2, as well as Dungeon Divers 3 later on. So if you have a little bit on the tail end, but you're already done with the Ice Golem tournament, rest assured, you could take some time and actually jump in with Fire Knight as well. I will say that it isn't gonna be too much. I think you get maybe like a quarter of the day here with the way it looks like it's gonna overlap with both of the Ice Golem as well as the Fire Knight. So I would say word to the wise is try to get most of it on the front end done for Dungeon Divers, and then if you catch any last little bit, you can maybe catch it with the next dungeon tournament, right? We do have another champ training event, so this is where it's going to get a little spicy. I think if you already had Dungeon Divers number 2 here, this is a great opportunity on Thursday, maybe to commit more to the champ training side until Dungeon Divers number 3 opens up. When Dungeon Diver 3 opens up, I think I would suggest, this is on Friday, by the way, I would suggest that you put a little bit more effort in the Fire Knight / Dungeon Diver event side. You do have a summon rush that's also going to come with that, so along with the previous champ training, you know, you're going to be pulling some shards. This is what you use. This is where now your shard count is going to be important. So I try to hold a rule of like at least 5 to 10-ish sacreds, maybe a couple of angels along the way, or if you have excess mysteries and you're willing to do that grind, then by all means you can pull those shards during that period too. Now, with that being said, we do have another Classic Arena takedown on Saturday. Same thing as the other one before. All you have to really do is kind of just prioritize doing them at least consistently throughout the couple days. If you're doing your dailies, maybe using your regenerative medals as well as what you have from, you know, daily login, your daily quest. You'll get enough to maybe get along the way there. So, and of course, if you have any extra you want to use along the way, there's nothing wrong. We like Grey Hall farming, so we do it, right? But I will say, Fire Knight is going to overlap with Dungeon Divers event number 3. So if you're not finished with that, by that point, rest assured you also have a Spider tournament coming up roughly around Sunday at the beginning, which is where we're going to have Spider and then the last little bit of Artifact Enhancement number 3. So if anything, I would say one thing that you can kind of keep in mind about Enhancement number 3 is that because Spider is one of the best places to get silver, if you front load, if you're only sitting on like maybe 40 mil and you're concerned about Artifact Enhancement number 3 being able to lock in, what you could do is you can front load your silver on Artifact Enhancement 1 and 2, make sure those are secured and locked up, and then process your accessories as you're farming Spider tournament, and that should hopefully placate enough of your artifacts and enchantment, you know, cost resource-wise. So what I will say is this, if you're ever at a point when it comes to like silver, and this is a little tip I'll give anybody in general, try not to enchant or level up a rank, you know, basically level up like accessories. They're more expensive than leveling up artifacts, at least in my own experience. Try to get one accessory up to like 16 sometimes takes the cost of like 2 or 3 artifacts, and it's just really, really bad RNG. So I would say, word to the wise, do the artifact side more so than the accessory side, but plan your resources accordingly. I did want to also note that we have a Summon Rush event on Friday, and I kind of skipped that altogether just because I want to go down the stairs, so to speak. Summon Rush, this one has a distinctive showcase of being able to get an additional epic. If you don't care about this epic, then I would say that you have the opportunity that if you're going to invest in the Summon Rush, now mind you, we don't know the full point scam, but if you go by a rule of like previous history, it's anywhere between like 3K to 4K, and give or take a little bit maybe, you know. So if you have enough resources and the shard cost is still the same, you know, about 500 per legendary shard or sacred shard you use, then you can plan accordingly, right? But that also allows you to maybe skip some things. So what would I skip if I were to consider doing it? Right now, I would say DD1 and Dragon overlap very, very well, so it's going to be hard to not do that one, as well as the champ training that's going to also give you some resources. Like, if you do campaign 12-3 and you're farming silver along with your farming food, you're still going to generate Dungeon Divers points, because even though it's common shields that you're getting, you're still netting some kind of value for Dungeon Divers, because it's basically just acquiring artifacts along the way, right? I would say Dungeon Divers 2 also doesn't seem to be too bad. I will give a nod that one might be one for consideration and consider maybe dropping off the board. Dungeon Divers are a little bit taxing because they normally have like a point requirement. It's a little bit more than even what the tournament associated to it would require, which is why I think they have the overlap the way they do. Another thing you can also consider too is champion chase, you know, because you go for the summer rush, you're going to get the one from the actual summer rush itself, but you can technically get an epic, and that may remove the requirement of having to get that one particular one there. So maybe you can save some of your resources for rainy day by just investing in the epic later. So there are some options, and it's really, my best advice is going to be based off of what your resources are. Are you struggling in terms of the silver department? Maybe skip some artifact enhancement events. Are you struggling with shards or fragments or fusion champions? Maybe make some offsets based off of that. And then, of course, as always, if energy is a big issue, then those Dungeon Divers events, maybe even a tournament. Maybe what you could do is, because you're going to summon the epic, you cut off the Spider tournament and the artifact enhancement and the Dungeon Diver event 3 all together, and you just don't have to worry about it. It's basically, it accumulates for 4 different singular rare events there. So, like, if you want to skip 1/4 of any of these like ladders that you see here on this calendar, that's actually something you could consider. Now, with that being said, depending on the champion, and I always would caution you to take a look at the champion's kit. It should be available in the game now live. I would be aware of what the kit brings to the table. If it's something that's interesting or useful for you, maybe get it too. I don't know. Y'all let me know. Are you planning on getting the epic champion just to use on your own? Or are you planning on skipping some events? If so, which ones would you like to skip? Leave me a comment, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And always, always remember, stay ascended.
Critic got the